And welcome back. This is the fourth video in the series Hi-Fi Seminary. And just so all of you are watching or listening or whatever platform you are viewing
Social
or listening
media.
to this on, this is where every week one of us brings an album and an artist that we're enjoying. Maybe we've enjoyed in the past, we're currently enjoying, encouraging the other two to listen to that album, talking just a little bit about that album, then kind of pointing to a song that and how it kind of leads us to a truth about, about Jesus, something about theology, how to live out our faith.
I feel like I know
the most
you guys
important
better.
one, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I know you guys better from this series. Like what makes you tick?
I think, well, I mean, I know Aaron and I, this is kind of our thing. Like we love knowing what other people listen to because it does help us know a little bit.
Well, basically, people are just becoming privy to the private conversations that Jay and I have.
Well, all the time. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for having me.
Well, no, it's great. We just love it. So just to clear up some things from the last video, there is indeed sodium in Diet Pepsi.
Yep.
But more in Coke?
But more in Diet Coke.
So if you're going to have one.
It's the slightly less, it's not a lot.
5 milligrams?
Yeah, it's not a lot. Anyway. So this week is my week. And I'm bringing the band, the Pierce Brothers. Yeah, the album's called Into the Great Unknown.
G'day, mate.
Yeah, this is my love of the Australian indie folk roots music scene. This is kind of my ode to that. I don't know what it is, but even so far, Courtney will sometimes, when I'm listening to music, she's like, "Oh, are they Australian?" Yes, I've got a thing.
I might love their accents.
Yeah,
Sorry, sweetie.
And so with this band, for me, this is actually something I've only recently kind of found out about, like the end of May, and we're now in July. So I don't necessarily know a ton about this artist because it's only been like 2 months.
And they don't have a lot of information about them when I was Googling.
Well, you can go on their bio and they're on their website and all that, but it's there. But yes, we'll get into this. There's not really a lot listed in for their lyrics, which will get us a little bit. Like I did find some lyrics for a few songs, but the one we're going to talk about a little later on, like I'm just hoping it's the right lyrics that we're talking about, or it's going to be like later on when like those lyrics do show up. Or I did order the vinyl and maybe the lyrics will be on there. You're like, oh, this song doesn't mean that at all.
Have you ever watched that comedian skit who does like wrongfully listened lyrics? And he's like, instead of my heart will go on, it's something about like hot dogs or something.
Yes. So
Pat and Jack, if you're listening, we're sorry if we get it wrong.
Yeah, we're sorry if we get it wrong, but we think you guys are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so to let you in on a little secret, how I like finding bands I've never heard of before. There's like easy ways and good ways to do that, like just letting your algorithm do that on whatever, YouTube or Apple Music or Spotify, whatever you do like that. One of the things, this takes a little more work, that I will do is sometimes find a band I like and just what a festival they're playing at or who the opening acts they have for that, and just like, oh, let's see who's there. And again, sometimes you got to click through the websites and they'll link it to some sort of YouTube video of that artist, or you have to do it yourself depending upon how that.
Well, it kind of goes to show the importance of the name. Like, I will literally check out a band because of their name.
Yeah, that's true. It's got to grab you.
Yep.
Yeah. But what I did for the Pierce Brothers is I actually was looking up at a guitar.
Of course.
Surprise.
Surprise.
How did we know?
And it's an Australian guitar company called Maton Guitars. And if you go to a lot of like equipment and stuff like that, they will often put down like artists they endorse or artists that use it. Mm-hmm. And I just clicked on that. I was just looking for random. Pierce Brothers came up, like, oh, I'm gonna go check it out. Had to actually go to Apple Music in this one and like look it up. Went to this album, Into the Great Unknown. First song, White Caps, and I'm a sucker for harmonies. And yeah, you got Pat and Jack, and they're twin brothers. And being a sucker for harmonies, they do it in spades, and they sound wonderful. So this is like literally, I think all I listened to was that first song, White Caps. I'm like, this is great. I showed it to Courtney, got spousal approval.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also
Very important.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's important. I'm just like, you can still like bands they don't like. But
Nikki
like,
and I have so different music. She'll be like, I'll come home and she'll be blasting Backstreet Boys, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm going back out.
yeah,
But I'm glad Courtney supports this because I support this.
I think so. Then I found accounts on YouTube that they did what I did last summer, and I just really enjoyed their setup. You have the one brother Patrick; he plays guitar as well as he has the kick drum, and then Jack plays the snare, some toms, other percussion, cymbals, the didgeridoo, harmonica, and so like they almost split the drums up a little bit. They're right beside each other. He's standing up, and he sometimes plays guitar too, and
I just have to say, when Jack plays the didgeridoo, it's like a spiritual experience.
oh, it is. He does this like little like
no, but like just
shimmy thing.
I never thought a didgeridoo could be played with such finesse and like it's like a solo that you're just captivated by.
Yeah, no, it's
See, I thought, I admit, I'm so, like we've talked about before, musically inept sometimes. When you put, however you say it, didgeridoo, whatever, I thought that maybe was a typo in your notes. I'm like, what is this?
I'm pretty sure I spelt it wrong.
I was like, what is a
So you're right. It is a
diggery,
typo.
diggery, and I was like, I'm not even going to Google
no.
that.
It's like an indigenous Australian.
Is it the lawn like
Yeah.
tube one? I think of Survivor. Yeah, I think of Survivor theme song when they play it at the very, and then the Survivor theme.
But yeah, like it's like he just plays it so well, and he does this like little shimmy if you watch him when he's doing it, and like I love it. Makes Courtney just giggle. But like I love it because he's right into this, and there's nothing better, I think, when watching a musician just loving the process of playing.
The craft.
Like
They
it's just
enjoy
like
it.
you just like it sucks you in, and just that, and they're high energy, especially Jack. Like he'll like play the drums on Patrick's guitar, and he'll hit the string sometimes to add to the rhythm and all that sort of stuff. And they did that because they started off as I lost the word, buskers.
Buskers, yeah.
And it's you definitely want to be good, obviously, if you're doing that sort of stuff. But you also do stuff that really grab people's attention. And what's on interview, he just said, "This is one of the things I did, and people liked it, so it just
Worked.
It worked." Yeah. And so, yeah. So, and the other thing I really kind of enjoyed just learning about this band a little bit too was like when they were gonna tour this album. Obviously, kind of in coming out in 2021, international travel was not really a thing that was happening. They actually started booking places around Australia, basically places they haven't been, places that haven't been in a long time. And so I'm guessing a lot of these places wouldn't have been the prestigious kind of places to play. Like kind of more, we didn't have them play there because they're a little more out of the way, or there's a bigger venue, maybe half an hour away or something like that. So I thought that was really cool that they did that. But
well, and they probably gained an appreciation for their homeland that they didn't have before.
I would imagine that too.
And how much their homeland would appreciate them.
Yeah,
This is our people,
gaining a following all over the place where they're from.
So anyway, yeah. So this is So Into the Great Unknown, and they recorded it in the midst of the 2020 lockdown. It came out in 2021, I think about March. This is their second, full-length studio album. They've had some EPs and live recordings, and like I said before, it was difficult, like to find lyrics, especially even the song that we're going to do, the Kanko. But there was some lyrics I found. But anyway, so like I said before, Whitecaps starts off the album. I just love it. It's got this great guitar start, synth, harmonies coming in right there. It hooks me. And then it just, and it seems to be really about moving into the unknown. Like one of the lines is the album title, Into the Unknown. And it's a lot about, I think, about life being scary. The waves are wild, but it's going to be all right. It's going to be worth it. The line in there, I'll be all right after the morning sun. I love that. It reminds me of kind of like Psalms 35, weeping may last for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. And it does speak a lot of life. Sometimes it is that whole like unknown, a little scary, but it's going to be all right. But it still could be a little unknown. It could still feel scary. There's some risk about that.
Well, this takes me back to when we were talking about the Gray with Thrice. Just like
very similar
idea, like just embracing it because there's actually something good that's going to come up.
There's something will happen. We'll be fine at the end of it. Brother, which is just an ode to their older brother. I think they have a little bit of fun with it. I'm not sure what prompted them to write the song, but it seems to be just possibly about the fact they felt some distance, life busyness, them traveling around the world. I don't know what the brother does, but apparently when they made the video, he was available to be there, and they decided that the video, he'll kind of play it straight doing the song, and he would kind of like he takes the guitar from one of them and pretends to do the solo and things like that. And so they had a great time making it. And then It's All Right, it's just a fun song. But let's get into the song that I really want us to look at, and that's Can't Go. It's really about kind of experiencing peace and restoration. Is kind of the theme of the song, because in the interview, Jack talks about like they were coming back. This was right before the pandemic, coming back for a long period of working years, traveling, and because the life of a touring musician is hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you did that for what, 6 months or so?
Yeah, it is hard.
It's
even just like the short period of time, and I mean, there's other factors go into it, but just the simple fact of being on the road, being away. Yeah. Being in a van, sometimes sleeping on the floor, it takes a toll. Yeah. You really have to love what you're doing as a musician to be okay with that.
Yeah. And the fact that they're in like kind of independent band, so they're not necessarily affording buses and staff. They got to do a lot of their work that more so themselves, so they're more tiring.
Yeah, no roadies. That's what you don't get when you're doing that as an independent band.
So they talked about just being burnt out, and they're going to have 2 months. And one of the plans was for him, Jack, to go with his fiance to New Zealand and in the mountains and hike. And then the pandemic happened, so that didn't happen. And they had sort of been writing the song before, and it's sort of like in the midst of the pandemic, was kind of finished writing the song and just really kind of wrote this song, which is really about peace and recovery and re-engaging and so they can face life. And so originally it was called Mountain Song. Again, there's a line actually in there, but in the actual song, but they named it Kanko, which is a mountain in Japan that they had some sort of special meaning to it, so much so that they named their dog Kanko.
When I looked up the lyrics, because like you said, they're hard to find, it actually, when you Google Kanko lyrics, it's a bunch of like Japanese artists.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, this is not what Jay had in mind, I don't think.
And also I tried to watch the video with the closed captioning to see if I could catch those lyrics, and no, not right.
It's some weird words. Like, I did that too. But anyway, so like, yeah, this song to me is really about pursuing peace and coming to a place of restoration. And I like that this song, well, I think music in general allows us to kind of create that space.
Yeah.
And it may not be the same, say, as that mountain moment, but it really can be a moment of peace. And I think a lot of that song, for me, really does that. And it kind of leads me to just this whole idea of peace, and kind of wanted to share from what Paul wrote in Philippians 4:4-7. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." You know, and I heard this, anxiousness or anxious thought, kind of defined this way, or excessive worry, and it really resonated with me, but just, it's worry without purpose or affecting change, as though one spins in circles going nowhere.
Yeah. I definitely know what that's like. Yeah. You know, I know what that's like. It's called spiraling.
Yeah.
Right? Where you just keep going and going and going, and you're just locked in this place of, I use the word frenetic because it's a good word for it. But also just even the very like sound of the word is the best for me. Sounds right. Is just where it's just a pace where like you're not going anywhere with it, and you just feel it in your body, you feel it in your head, you just feel lost in this like chaos.
Well, I think that's a really big thing when it comes to the overthinking and anxiousness and all that. Your body does feel the effects of it, even though your body is not there at all, not where your mind is.
Yeah.
Like it so affects.
And I try to convince myself so I don't get to that point of physical sickness, but I don't, because my mind is still there.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I feel better. I feel better.
Well, sometimes my body's there first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So, like, I will feel anxiety in my body first, and then I have anxiety about the fact that I have anxiety in my body. It's just, it's terrible.
It really is.
it's a vicious cycle. It really is.
And so the line that I think it's my favorite line in the song, and it's in the second verse, and it says, in the mystery of my mind, we can get lost from time to time. Especially as I heard again, he's talking about burnout and all that, and how much, sometimes we can look at burnout kind of like we're doing too much, which is absolutely true. But sometimes so much burnout happens because our mind is so, again, like this, we're lost in those anxious thoughts, and we feel that burnout, even though maybe we physically haven't done a lot. We get burnt out in those moments because we're in our own struggles with anxiousness and overthinking, and it just spins and it's going nowhere. It's not helpful at all, and you get stuck. And it is that vicious cycle that doesn't lose anything, but it sure likes to pick things up.
I had a moment recently at work where I had a bad moment with a customer, and it threw me into a big spiral. And my Fitbit actually picked up that I thought I was exercising.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, and it was like, you've been exercising for 22 minutes. And I'm like, I've actually just stayed still. But the heart, it recognized my heartbeat was in the fat burning zone.
Yeah.
Because it was at like 170 beats, even though I was just sitting still.
Wow.
And just shows like you can be doing nothing, but you can be still doing so much.
Yeah. And so I think just, even if the like that was a scenario that you weren't doing anything, but it was a real scenario. But even sometimes imagined scenarios.
Yeah. Oh, what if?
Can do the what if thing.
I hate those.
Yeah, that could be that whole thing, and we don't feel peace. We don't feel restored. Then we continue on life devoid of strength, running on empty. Adrenaline's depleted because we've been running on adrenaline to get this going, and that's just excessively damaging and destructive.
I heard one quote that I liked the other day was, anxiety is the weight you put on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking about tomorrow, and that you're working out for tomorrow's sake, and you're like, tomorrow's not even here, but I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it adds that. It's
I've heard it say like there's a lot of anxiety is our mind in the future.
Yeah.
With
the
our
weight
bodies
of the weight of
being
it.
here
Yeah.
in the present. So, and the other thing, and even with that, there's a line in the first verse that says, "The deeper in you go, little creatures they surround you." So, I don't know exactly what they meant in that, but I know I really take it as, again, that things are piling up. It just seems to get worse, vicious cycles. Again, picking up more burden. It leaks all into all areas of life. It doesn't get to stay in that nice contained thing.
I picture the little cartoons, you see on the old cartoons where the person looks to their shoulder. Oh, you say this, and then it's eating you up. I don't know.
So we're kind of in the idea of peace. I think that when we reach that clearing, and then we see that our burden's there. If we look at really what Paul's saying, it's about giving them to Jesus. But I think we would say it's not just sort of like some sort of like our prayer. Those moments are about sort of offloading anxiety. It really is about Jesus being present. And I think that's, that's a really thing, and a big thing that sometimes I think we miss with prayer. It's not just sort of the giving of lists, even though we can do that. It's not just sort of like, again, a simple offloading experiment that we do. It's really about seeing Jesus present and him with us. And I love the C.S. Lewis quote from Mere Christianity. It said, "God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from himself, because it's not there. There's no such thing."
Right.
That I just was thinking, thinking of just like worrying about tomorrow. Jesus addressed that. He addressed that in the Sermon on the Mount. He said, "Do not worry." You cannot add a single day to your life by worrying. So let tomorrow be enough trouble for itself. Worry about today, and seek first the kingdom. And I love that that's what Jesus does. He's like, seek my kingdom, and I'll take care of all those things you worry about.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part. Like seeking the kingdom, seeking his presence.
Yeah.
And I think a really big part of that, because I go back to that again, going back to Philippians. It starts off with rejoice in the Lord always.
Right.
And I think it's really about, kind of like I think what the idea of them singing the song about, the mountain song and Kenko, and it's coming to a place of enjoyment. Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge part of peace. Again, it's not just the merely offloading of burdens, as it's enjoying the presence of God.
Yeah, it's not everything's fixed.
No, but it is about enjoyment. Because I'm quite often trying to remind myself of like parts of Psalms, like the beginning of Psalm 34:8 is taste and see, and the Lord is good. Psalm 37:4 it starts with take delight in the Lord. Like it really is about enjoyment.
Yeah.
And enjoying the Lord. Much like, again, it's like when they were, the idea of going to that mountain, it was a place where obviously enjoyment was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that peace comes through enjoyment. And then I think as followers of Jesus, like we're supposed to be agents of peace. Obviously it's a fruit of the Spirit, part of the fruit of the Spirit.
Great Marvel show, Agents of Peace.
Agents of peace. Yeah, here
Justice
they coming
League.
for you.
Peace gun.
Calm down.
Let me shoot you with some peace. No.
Oh, but I think it's just like it's the whole idea. Is like if we want to be agents of peace, we need to be experiencing it and taking that time to do that. I love this quote from Amy L. Sherman, and she's using the Hebrew word for peace with shalom. And she said, "Shalom signifies spiritual, psychological, social, and physical wholeness. And shalom is God's normative intention for us. Shalom is what we find in his original creation. Shalom is what will characterize the new heaven and the new earth in his consummated kingdom." And so it is that sort of, I think that idea also that, again, the idea that seek first the kingdom of God is at hand, is to not just sort of leave it for like that moment after life.
Yeah.
But we get to have something of it even here. It won't be necessarily as great and as wonderful, but it's still there, and we want to impart it.
Already, not yet.
Yeah. And I think that's just a really important thing. We want to experience it, and we want to people to experience it off of, like the fruit. It really benefits those around us. So I think it's really important, in like I guess with the song, where it's a mountain, a place we can experience peace. I think those are really important things. Though it's not necessarily, I think we're supposed to find it in prayer, but I think those places inspire us in the midst of doing that. I think that's really good to have those. And, again, it's the mountain place in this song. And I know lots of people who we're not far from the mountains, and they like to hike in there for that same thing. I know for me, it's the visual and sound of running water. I don't mean out of the tap. Like there's a place in Canmore, there's a bench that I just love sitting on. There's a stream that comes through, and just the sound of the water coming through and all that is a place of peace for me. It's so different. I'm pretty sure. But I know someone. I would say that probably Disneyland for that person might actually be one of those places. Like I don't know that. I experienced enjoyment. I'm not sure if she'll experience peace.
I'm overwhelmed in Disneyland.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm overwhelmed, but like I'm not that. But what about you guys? Do you guys have peace places?
Yeah. Riding bikes. Like when I can just kind of like go off without any kind of, well, even if I'm like actually using it as a commute even, but if I can just go off on my bike and just have a bit of an adventure, exercise does the exercise of it, but also just being outside. And I love bikes. I love what they are and where they take you, how they transport you from place to place, and you're using your body, all that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing the place that really comes my down is anywhere where I can like sit and just listen to the wind in the trees. That's a really calming sound for me. It's something that I even like kind of like imagine in moments where it's like I'm not there, but I really need to just kind of like take a moment to kind of like calm down, find some peace for myself. I will actually imagine myself listening to the wind in the trees.
As a dad of a young kid, holding Sam in the morning when he's sleeping after I feed him his first meal. The house is quiet.
That's cool.
And I look at him and I say, this is, my beloved child. And it reminds me how God holds me safe, secure. And if I do fuss, he's there.
Right.
really
and then I get Eli who runs out and says his good morning, or you guys know how he talks. Hello, Daddy. He makes us all chuckle. And it just reminds me of a greater purpose that I have.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
My first job in life is to be a husband and a dad.
Yeah.
And the same role God has, he looks at me as, my caregiver, one that supports me the most,
Yeah. The reason I think wind means so much to me is just, this may not be intentional, but it definitely, I can actually identify this with just how in scripture, wind refers to the spirit, God's life, God's life, his breath. And so just, I imagine God speaking to me in the wind, not necessarily like in a tangible, audible voice, but just speaking peace.
Well, just to kind of wrap it up here, I think just like it's really, again, finding those places of peace, places that inspire us to be in the presence of God in prayer. And I mean, to make sure that we're making that I would say an everyday thing of life, whatever that looks like. We may not be able to go to that place, or maybe you are, but just finding those places is so important. And this song is about that. And it's not necessarily peace is not, and I really think the peace that again, in Philippians, where it's surpasses our understanding. It's not necessarily about the elimination of the stresses and burdens in our life, though I think it does help get rid of some of the unnecessary ones that we probably add to ourselves. But I think it's really about the ability to endure those, the things and that things that go on, the stresses and burdens that are going to be there, natural, that come with life. It gives us strength, gives us a clear mind to navigate that what remains, and it allows us to be restored so that everything that has been depleted is back. And it just reminds me that I need to make sure that in my life I am pursuing peace.
Right.
Well, peace isn't about the absence of conflict. It's about the steadiness of during it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the removal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It helps me at least.
All right. Well, I hope those are listening, that you got something from this, and find your place that helps you peace, and take time in prayer or whatever. It doesn't have to be long. You can set a timer for 2 or 3 minutes and just quiet time sometimes, just to hear from God, talk to God.
I would love to hear from you guys who are listening. Where is your peace?
Where is that place you like to go to that helps you enjoy the presence of God and brings you what you need to navigate life? Well, we'll see you next week.